Welcome everybody to the afternoon meeting of the Lane County Board of Commissioners for August 18th, 2020. Our first item on our agenda was 12A. A has been pulled, so we are going to item 12B, a public hearing and setting the final hearing for Order 20-08-18-12 in the matter of annexing territory to the Goshen Rural Fire Protection District to provide fire protection service to the annexed territory, consisting of 17 tax lots, and setting the final hearing. File number F-PH-2020-ANX-1. So I'm going to read some rules about this particular hearing. This is the first of at least 2 public hearings on the matter, giving an opportunity for those present to enter information into the record. And if the board approves the proposal, the second hearing will be limited to considering whether there is sufficient request for an election of and on the annexation. If there is no request for an election at the second hearing, the board, if it so moves, can adopt a final order on the annexation. And the decision criteria for special district annexations are established in the Lane County Board Order 07-12-12-19 and are cited in the agenda cover memo and attachment. So now I will call for disclosure of board member ex parte contacts and abstentions due to conflicts of interest, ex parte contacts, or biases. Are there any from board members? Commissioner Sorensen. You are on mute.
Sorry about that. I have none.
Okay. I don't see any others. And it doesn't look like Commissioner Farr is with us this afternoon. So we will move forward to hearing the report by staff.
Thank you, Chair Buck, and good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Rachel Surslev, Staff Planner for this application. And the request before you today is for the annexation into a special district boundary, specifically a fire district boundary. These types of requests are subject to ORS Chapter 198 and Lane County Board Order 07-12-12-19, which provides guidance for processing applications related to special district boundaries. And this is the first of 2 public hearings scheduled on this matter as required by ORS Chapter 198. The application before you today is for annexation of 17 parcels, approximately 492 acres, into the Goshen Rural Fire Protection District. The parcels are located southwest of Lane Community College near East 43rd Avenue, just outside of the urban growth boundary of Eugene. The 17 parcels are owned by 7 property owners in total, all of which signed the petition for annexation. The Goshen Fire District Board of Directors approved the request to annex the properties with resolution number 5-19 on November 12th, 2019. Notice was posted and published as required, and as of today, staff has not received any comments regarding the proposal. And in the agenda cover memo provided to the board, staff have evaluated the approval criteria located at ORS 198, and all of approval criteria are found to be met for this application. If the board approves the annexation request today, then a second hearing is limited to considering whether there is a request for an election on this matter. If there is not a request for an election at the second hearing, the board can move to adopt the final order. So staff today is recommending that the board adopt a preliminary order annexing the territory into the Goshen Rural Fire Protection District and a order setting the final hearing date for August 25th, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. time certain. And staff will just note that neither Land Watch, Lane County, nor Attorney Sean Malone have been involved in this application so far. And that concludes my presentation.
Very good, thank you. So now we'll open the public hearing are there any applicants' testimony at this time?
Chair Buck, I do not see anyone signed up to speak at this meeting.
Okay, so I'll just call out, even though you don't see anybody, just to be on point here. So testimony of persons in favor, nobody's present. Testimony of other persons, including those opposed. Doesn't seem that anybody's present for that. I will assume there's no additional comments by staff since you just did your staff briefing. And applicant rebuttal, nobody is present for that. So if there is nobody present to do any public testimony, we'll close the public hearing and record unless a request has been made to continue the hearing or leave the record open. Is there any request for that? I do not hear any or see any. So we've closed the public hearing and the record at this point. So next would be a motion to approve the hearing and setting the final hearing for order 20-08-18-12 for August 25th, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. time certain. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Bozovich, second by Commissioner Burney. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Bozovich.
Not pertinent to this motion, but before Ms. Surslev leaves, can I ask a quick question about why 12A was pulled from the calendar?
Yes, certainly. There was a scrivener's error in the agenda title, and so it needs to be renoticed and it will be put on a future agenda.
Thank you. Just curious.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion? I don't hear any, so we'll go to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously 4-0 with Commissioner Farr excused. We'll move on to the first reading and setting the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 20-08. The matter of amending Lane Code 16.244, floodplain combining zone, rural comprehensive plan, Lane Code 10.271, floodplain combining districts for lands with urban growth boundaries, to modernize terminology and formatting, clarifying review processes, and align the code more closely with state law and Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, Title 44, and adopting a savings and severability clause, file number 509-PA20-05047, and order 20-08-1813 in the matter of amending Chapter 11 of Lane Manual to remove Section 11.020 floodplain hazard studies. PM and NBA shows December 27th, 2018, October 29th, 2019, and June 16th, 2020. And setting second reading and public hearing for September 1st, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. time certain. And we have Rachel Surslev, again, our associate planner.
Thank you again, Chair, and good afternoon. This is Rachel Surslev, staff planner for the Floodplain Code Modernization Project. And this is the first reading of ordinance number 20-08, also identified as Land Management Division file number 509-PA20-0504. And this is a code amendment project initiated by the Land Management Division to update the floodplain combining zone code, which is located at Lane Code Chapter 16.244 and 10.271. On June 16th, 2020, a public hearing with the Lane County Planning Commission was held regarding this project. And at that time, the Planning Commission deliberated on this topic and provided a motion and recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. Generally, the Planning Commission recommended that the board direct staff to study and evaluate the need for mitigating measures to address fill placed in the floodplain. Second, the Planning Commission wanted to revise the code language pertaining to fish enhancement structures in the floodway. Third, the time period for counting cumulative substantial improvements was revised from 10 years to 5 years. And fourth, the Planning Commission recommended revising the code to not require a third elevation certificate for developments in the floodplain. And lastly, the Planning Commission recommends not requiring higher elevation of structures built in the floodplain. And that generally summarizes the motion provided from the Planning Commission to the board. The Planning Commission motion and the changes to the code that are presented to the board at this time are summarized in the agenda cover memo. And furthermore, staff has also received a request from the chair for staff to provide a more detailed table and description of the notable code changes that have occurred since the code was presented to the Planning Commission. And so staff will work to complete that table and compile that information, and will disseminate it to the board prior to the second reading and public hearing on this matter. And also the item before you today is to request that the board set the second reading and public hearing for September 1st, 2020, time certain at 1:30 p.m. At that time, staff will provide a more comprehensive staff report on the project, and there will be an opportunity for public comment at that time. And I'll note again that neither Landwatch Lane County nor Attorney Sean Malone have been involved in this project so far. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? I do not see any or hear any. So I will ask if there is a motion to approve the first reading and setting the second reading and public hearing for ordinance 20-08 and order 20-08-18-13. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Commissioner Sorensen? A second?
I second the motion.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moved by Commissioner Posevich, second by Commissioner Sorensen. Is there any discussion? I'm not seeing any, but I do have one comment to add. It has come to my attention that some of the updates that we are considering here for this particular item, Yamhill County has also had some updates to their code, specifically regarding development in the floodway with specific exemptions. And I would like to see what that looks like, comparatively speaking, to what is being presented to ourselves at the September 1st, 2020 hearing. And then again, of course, I did ask for a detailed description in summary of what the differences were between what was presented to us prior to the Planning Commission and what is in the final form from staff as a recommendation coming to us. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Burney? Discussion, I should say.
Well, whatever it's called. I just want to voice appreciation that you've made those requests, Chair, because this is not normally part of my wheelhouse. It is getting that way more and more, and any information on different ways counties have approached this and the rationale for same would be really informative for me as we move forward. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously 4-0 with Commissioner Farr excused. Okay, we'll move on to 12D, Order 20-08-18-14. In the matter of authorizing staff to pursue legalization proceedings for a section of Gillum Road, a public road, in accordance with ORS 368.201. And with us, we have Michael J. Blume from Lane County, the Lane County Surveyor, and Sasha Vartanian, Transportation Planning Supervisor.
Thank you, Chair Buck, and good afternoon, Commissioners. This is Jay Blomade, Lane County Surveyor, and as noted, joining me today is Sasha Vartanian, Lane County Transportation Planning Supervisor. We are here today to ask the board to authorize staff to pursue legalization proceedings for a portion of Gillum Road located in the North Eugene area north of Ayers Road. The reason for this request is twofold. The first reason is to formally bring a section of Gillum Road into the county road system, which would bring the county into compliance with ORS requirements that road fund dollars only be spent on the maintenance and improvements of county roads unless otherwise authorized by the county governing body. The second reason will allow the county to move forward on a planned safety improvement project, which is being funded through grant money awarded to the county. The portion of Gillum Road we are discussing today lies north of the Ayers Road intersection and is approximately 1/2 mile in length. Lane County surveyed the road earlier this year for the purpose of providing a topographical survey to the Lane County design team. The survey also included existing survey monumentation along the road, which is used to determine the existing right-of-way of the road. As my staff examined the road records, we came to the conclusion that the road was not a county road, as current public works staff had believed. Numerous records that staff rely upon have incorrectly indicated that this section of Gillum Road is a county road. It is important to note that this section of road up to the 0.51 mile point has historically been maintained by county road maintenance staff. There are two ways that a road is brought into the county road system. The first method is by petition, which is initiated through the landowners along the road. The second method is by resolution, which is initiated by the county. Whenever a road is brought into the county road system, a record that we refer to as a master road file is created. The master road file contains a record of all the proceedings creating the county road and assigns the road a county road number. In this case, my office does not have a master road file for this section of road. During our research, we did find a research folder dated 1989 that confirms that this section of road is not a county road. ORS Chapter 368 is clear that road fund money is only to be used for county roads unless otherwise authorized by the board. A recent example of the board authorizing road fund money to be used on a local access road is the board's authorization for emergency expenditures along Collard Lake Road in 2019. If the board approves this action, future road maintenance activities to the 0.51 mile point of Gillum Road will be in compliance with the aforementioned statute. In addition, establishing this section of Gillum Road as a county road will correct the defective road records and allow the safety improvement project to move forward, as the grant money will be in jeopardy if the road is not legalized. At this time, I'd like to turn this presentation over to Sasha, who will give the board a presentation of the safety improvement project. After Sasha's presentation, I will provide the board with an explanation of the legalization process.
Thank you, Chair Buck and Commissioners. I'll provide a brief overview of the planned infrastructure project. The project was initiated by the community. Specifically, members of the Northeast neighborhood played an active role in advocating for sidewalk infill along Gillum Road due to safety concerns. staff pursued and secured grant funding to improve safety for people walking and biking along Gillum Road. The project is funded by federal funding only eligible in the metro area and dispersed by the Metropolitan Policy Committee. Specifically, the funds are Surface Transportation Block Grant and Congestion Mitigation Funds. So the project is between Ayers Road and Sterling Park Place, and it's a two-part design. The north of Ayers Road, Gillum has a patchwork of sidewalk built by more recent housing development. This project would fill in those sidewalk gaps on both sides of the Gillum Road from Ayers to Ashbury and match the existing sidewalk that is there, as well as bike lanes. Then north of Ashbury to Sterling Park Place, Gillum lacks sidewalk and also has open draining ditch, and this is a more confined area. So the project would provide a sidewalk on the west side of the street, avoiding more of property impacts and street tree preservation on the east side. The project was originally planned to go to all the past Sterling Park Place, but it has been cut short based on a further project evaluation on property impacts and large tree impacts. At the upcoming September Transportation Advisory Committee meeting, they are scheduled to hold a public hearing on the design concept for this project. After the hearing, the Transportation Advisory Committee will forward a recommendation to you, and you in October will be asked to make sure that the final decision about will be asked to make a final decision about the design concept. So that's the summary of the infrastructure projects and next steps for that project. And I'll pass it back to Jay.
Thank you, Sasha. Legalizations may be used to create county roads if any of the three following conditions exist. Number one, if through omission or defect, doubt exists as to the legal establishment of the road. Number two, if the location of the road cannot be accurately determined due to faulty records. Or number three, if the road as traveled and used for 10 years or more does not conform to the location of the road as described in the county records. It is my opinion that this portion of Gillum Road meets condition number one of these conditions. So to summarize, if the board approves this action, Surveyor's Office staff will move forward with the legalization process, which will include public notification and a public hearing at a future board meeting. The road right-of-way will be determined by staff and a road survey will be filed. It is important to note that at this time, only the portion of Gillum Road that is currently being maintained by the county will be legalized. In addition, only current recognized public right-of-way will be legalized, as there is no intent to acquire additional right-of-way as part of the legalization process. If additional right-of-way is needed in conjunction with the safety improvement project, Lane County right-of-way staff will negotiate those acquisitions with affected landowners as part of the safety improvement project. So that concludes my presentation, and either Sasha or I are available for questions.
Any questions for staff on this? Commissioner Bozovich.
Thank you. So having been involved in the last phase of River Glen subdivision as the engineer, but then also doing a lot of the water system work in these subdivisions, I'm kind of curious about why this road hasn't been accepted into city maintenance and why some of the frontages of these subdivisions weren't required to be improved to city standards, particularly the northernmost one. I do know there's a couple gaps of undeveloped, unannexed property in there, but it just is a little surprising to see this much development along the roadway without the requirement that the roadway be brought to city standards.
Sasha, is Sasha able to answer that question?
Kind of. It's complicated, but it takes the city being willing to accept the roadway for it to become a city road, and that has not occurred on this road section. Currently, when there is a development proposal and we receive a referral to review any land use changes, we do require when they are on a adjacent to county road, we do require them to build to the city standards when they are within urban growth limits.
Yeah, and that's kind of, it is within, the UGB is right up there to the north of all this. It seems to me that we should be working towards all these roads, particularly when they're surrounded by urban development, converting them to city roads. I do appreciate the sidewalk project though, because there's an elementary school just to the south of this that all those new residents are trying to get to. And it seems like we ought to be able to get funding out of Safe Routes for School for some of those sidewalks. Yeah, whatever we can do to set this up to be turned over to the city would be fortunate. I'm just surprised the city allowed those subdivisions to not improve that street. At least even a half improvement is just shocking to me. It seems a great lack and a missed opportunity in the development process to have the folks that actually created the impact pay for the impact.
I will note, Commissioner Bozovich, that there are several subdivisions in this stretch of road that are what I would say fairly old, probably 1960s, early 1970s era. So I make an assumption that some of those gaps could be in those subdivisions.
Everything on the west side is post 1993 because it happened after I got to Oregon, and everything north of Tor is post 1993.
Any other questions? Commissioner Barney.
Having heard what Commissioner Bozovich said and enjoying how he measures time, he got that one. I would request you do more than note it, but you specifically in writing ask the question why, and ask if the city also agrees that they will want to take ownership of that upon improvements.
This is Sasha Vartanian. I will note we are working on the section from Ayers to Ashbury in the hopes that because that will be built to city standards, that the city will be willing to take that section of road once this infrastructure project is complete. We are less hopeful about the section north from Ashbury to Sterling Park Place because there will only be sidewalk on one side of the road and it won't meet full city standards.
Any other questions? Okay, I don't hear any. So is there a motion to approve order 20-08-18-14 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Burney, second by Commissioner Sorensen. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously 4-0 with Commissioner Farr excused. We'll move on to item 12E, order 20-08-18-15 in the matter of approving road fund expenditures in the amount of $21,000 for emergency repairs and improvements on the local access road portion of Gillum Road. And with us is Dan Hurley, and our Director of Public Works, and Oren Schumacher, Road Maintenance Division Manager, and Matt Turnoff, Road Maintenance Planner. We need you on off mute there.
Thank you, Chair Buck. Good afternoon, Commissioners. So we have another board item related to Gillum Road, and I wanted to have some discussion on this to make sure that you understand that these are two unrelated items that coincidentally landed on the same afternoon. They're for two different sections of Gillum Road and completely unrelated in the need for discussion on this item. So this item relates to the northernmost section of Gillum Road, which is a local access road. And we've had a few conversations with the board about the numerous problems that go along with having local access roads. And this is a perfect example of what happens with these local access roads and how they become sort of orphaned in their maintenance. So originally this was a country road, was adequately serving the few parcels that were adjacent to the road as a local access road should. However, it has now been surrounded by developments that have been approved and annexed into the city. So this section of a local access road, there are, I think, 6 properties that abut the road. All but 2 of those are annexed into the city, but it serves about 85 parcels in subdivisions that are surrounding the local access road. So it has fallen into disrepair. The adjacent property owners have not maintained it. Local access roads are supposed to be maintained by the adjacent property owners. But clearly there's an equity issue here of why 6 property owners should be maintaining a road that's serving 85 properties that are within the city. So this road fell into such disrepair that it was becoming a safety hazard, was damaging vehicles. When these potholes are filled with water, it's hard to see how deep they and wide they actually are. And it became such a safety issue that we put some temporary patching in there, but it requires a more substantial fix. And so at this point, we're requesting that the board authorize $21,000 to do a repair on this section of road. We're required by lane manual and ORS statutes to request that approval from the board for funding on a local access road. It's a pretty small repair given the grand scheme of things for the budget for the road fund. We would like to move forward with this to prevent the road falling into further disrepair. Obviously, this speaks to a larger issue and a philosophical issue that why should we be maintaining, or the adjacent property owners maintaining this small section of road for subdivisions that are within the city. We would love to have the city take this into their system and maintain it, but the city is unwilling to take in a road. Their stance is they're not taking on roads that aren't brought up to city standards. I have a philosophical issue with this of, why should we be subsidizing development as a county, bringing roads up to city standards to serve city developments that are annexed to the city. So at some point, I would love it if the board and Eugene City Council would engage in the conversation around development and annexation of roads. That's a larger conversation that will take considerable time to work through. So for this action, we're just trying to move forward to do a temporary repair to band-aid this until such action could be taken. And so that summarizes kind of the big picture. Matt is on the line. I don't know if you want to talk about kind of the specifics of the repair.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Chair and fellow commissioners. Dan summarized most of it. So if we scroll down into the attached materials to item letter D, financial and resource considerations. Again, the repairs and improvements to Gillum Road can be carried out by county forces at an estimated cost of $21,000. Basic breakdown of the job include county crews would saw, cut, and remove deteriorated asphalt for approximately 150 feet to prepare for new asphalt surface. Install approximately 150 lineal feet of storm pipe and install the catch basins to mitigate standing or slow moving water. Pave the new surface with approximately 10 tons of asphalt materials. Funding for the repairs could come out of the county road fund materials and services budget. The cost of the repairs is not expected to significantly affect other projects or maintenance priorities. After that, Dan, you summed it up pretty good. I don't know that there's much to add at this point.
Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, sorry. Is that everything?
It is,
okay. Any questions, Mr. Bozovich?
So, one, I'd like to move approval of the order, and then I'd like to speak to it.
Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Bozovich, second by Commissioner Burney, and we'll have some discussion. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. So once again, the subdivision on the west side of this stretch of road is a fairly modern subdivision in City of Eugene history. I am greatly concerned that somehow or another they didn't follow their rules relative to requiring improvements along the frontage of a subdivision. And I would like to request Public Works staff possibly to go back, find the records for the approval of this subdivision, see if if there was any findings around not improving that frontage, and maybe going back to the city with legal counsel and basically saying, you all erred, you should have had at least a half, if not a 2/3 street improvement for this full frontage. We want you to take over maintenance based on that error and not require us to bring it up to your standards, because it should have been brought up when you allowed the subdivision to occur. But there is just something drastically going wrong on this whole length of Gillum Road, that those more modern subdivisions were not required. I did lots of subdivisions in the Santa Clara area, and I remember doing 2/3 street improvements to county roads and putting in curb, gutter, and sidewalk because we fronted the county road on that edge of the subdivision. I have no idea why these didn't have to do that. And I think we need to press that issue with the city, that there's a responsibility they missed in the approval process. They could have required the developer to pay for. So it shouldn't be the county's burden then to bring it up to city standards. And it's going to take some research and possible legal counsel, and then maybe a negotiation with the city. Maybe there's a split responsibility on bringing it to city standards. But we really need to be working towards getting away from maintaining county roads within the UGB when there's city property fronting more than 2/3 of the street.
Agreed, Commissioner, and we'd be happy to do that. I'm not familiar enough about the city's rules, and I think it would be a good exercise to go through and hopefully could bear some fruit to address not only this issue, but where we're seeing this out in other areas.
Mr. Bernie.
I anticipate being in the minority on this opinion. Dan, I have grown to know and respect and trust your judgment, and for you to identify that this brings up this whole other issue, which is larger, I want to speak to that larger issue. It seems as if there is a relationship between county and city, if I'm wrong, tell me, where in many ways we're paying costs for things that really benefit the city. I know because the city council of Eugene City Council of years past voted themselves homeless, that Lane County is now a landlord and they are one of our tenants. My understanding is that that relationship, that lease ends in November of this year. It seems like this is a time to make fair and equal and clarify roles and relationships as we partner on everything moving forward. And I think that, we're not in a bad bargaining position. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? I'll just add that I too have very serious concerns with our LARs, as we've had in previous discussions. It's clearly inequitable for us to be fronting costs like this when it's city residents that are really being served. And I would look forward to having that discussion that you suggested, Dan, with city folks and figure out how to resolve this, because if we don't, it will simply continue and not be resolved. And that's funding that we could be using for other vital county services. So I do believe we have a motion on the table for this one. Is that right? Did I recall that right? Okay. If there's no other discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously 4-0 with Commissioner Farr excused. We'll move on to item 12F, which is an action item to authorize Lane County to join the County Climate Coalition. And with us is Dan Hurley again and Mark Nystrom, our Lane County Climate Strategist.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll pass directly to Mark, who's been working on this issue. Mark?
Great. Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me. This is a request from me to, as the climate strategist, to have us sign on to a letter that would have us join the County Climate Coalition. It's a group of counties that get together from around the country to have webinars and other opportunities to network and share results-oriented strategies and work to reduce local greenhouse gas emissions and set examples for climate action. They talk about subjects like renewable energy development, alternative community energy providers, enhanced waste diversion, environmentally friendly vehicles, reduction of water use, and other solutions. This group was started by Santa Clara County, California, but they have members from coast to coast. And we just need to sign a letter or have Chair Buck sign a letter just stating that we're interested in joining. There's no cost and there's no other actions that we need to take.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Sorensen?
At this time, I'd like to move approval of the action presented, recommended, and speak to the motion.
Second.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Oh, do you want to repeat that, Chair?
Well, I don't necessarily have an order in front of us, so it is asking for action. Seems like if we want action, we need at least 3 head nods.
Well, no, I made a motion. No, I made a motion. I thought you were going to just repeat who made the motion, what it was, right. And there was a second, and then I would get called on to discuss it.
Right, but I'm trying to ask staff if there's some clarification because there wasn't necessarily an order for a motion for approval. And if we need a motion, we should know that, or if we need 3 head nods, we need to know that.
Chair Buck, this is Mark, the climate strategist. My understanding is that we didn't need a motion on this, that it was just authorizing you to sign the document.
Which requires a motion.
Sorry, what was that?
I think that requires a motion.
So maybe I should just restate my motion to make it more clear. Is that okay, Chair?
Absolutely.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to move that Lane County join the County Climate Coalition and that the chair sign a letter prepared by Mr. Nystrom to that effect.
That's much more eloquently than I would have stated. I would have said, sign the damn letter, but I second your motion, sir.
So here's the thing. There's a whole bunch of different groups out there that Lane County could join. And the reason I think we should join this one is because it's a start. As Mr. Nystrom points out, this group was started by Santa Clara County, California. And many years ago, I went to Santa Clara County to talk with them about this coalition and the beginnings of this coalition. And I really think that this is a good start. But I just wanted to add, this is just a start in my view, because I think there are many other groups out there of this type of what I would call common sense climate change organizations that Lane County could benefit from. And at this time, I'm just not, suggesting what those other ones are, but I just want to invite staff if they believe there are other resources out there that we could benefit from, that we would do so. And in the meantime, this step that's proposed by staff is a good one.
Commissioner Bozovich, sorry, I think I was on mute. Although you're on mute now.
Sorry, I wasn't on mute and muted myself. So first I want to say I'm glad there's no cost to this. But second question I have is looking at some of the websites for this project, most of it talks about the Paris Agreement. Is joining this climate coalition also committing us to adhering to the Paris Climate Agreement?
Commissioner Bozovich, all the letter says is that, or when I asked the group about that, they said that the resolution that was passed in February was sufficient and that we would not need to do any other commitments beyond that.
Okay, because if it was, that would be starting to deal with treaties between countries, which is not constitutionally legal for us to do as a county. And the fact that the Paris Climate Accord is extremely flawed, allowing China to continue to grow its emissions while restricting other countries. It's a boondoggle. That answers my questions. I still question why we're placing so much effort in this with the amount of greenhouse gas we actually emit here in Oregon and per capita, and the lack of operational greenhouse gases we emit as a county. So still kind of seems to be an unnecessary effort.
Commissioner Burney?
Mark, you're gonna now get a bit of a criticism from me, but coming from a different perspective. I believe the last time you approached the board, it related to structurally how to put together an advisory group. And I know that's moving forward. And now you're coming to us to sign a letter that's part of this network. I'm obviously will vote for it, but you haven't come and said, okay, here's how we're decreasing carbon emissions. Here are the new initiatives and the groups that we're linking with to do that. I'm waiting for some meat. Okay, I just want you to know that. And as it relates to networking with groups that have done research and have information, of course you should do that. And I would also, even in a post-COVID environment, suggest, just so we're consistent here, that this isn't anything where we're going to be spending money to burn carbon emissions to travel to conferences to meet with these guys. And we actually are tracking the carbon emissions of the work it's taking to develop climate actions, because I am so concerned with results and so wary of people running around and not getting tangible results. I'm not suggesting that's the case, but I think this climate initiative itself ought to be monitoring, tracking the emissions it, by the very nature of what it's doing, is emitting into the atmosphere. Having said that, I am on the edge of my seat to look at pragmatic, concrete results, initiatives, activities that end up creating net new jobs from this initiative. But thank you.
Any other comments? I would say I concur with everything that Commissioner Burney just mentioned as well. I'm very much looking forward to things that we can implement right away. With that, we have a motion on the table by Commissioner Sorensen and second by Commissioner Burney. If there's no other discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 3-1 with Commissioner Farr excused. At this time, We're going to move to executive session. And it's just a reminder for commissioners and staff that are attending that we have a different link. We will conclude this particular webinar link and go on to that link. So the executive session for Tuesday, August 18th, 2020, the Board of County Commissioners will meet in executive session to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent. This executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.660 subsection 2 subsection A, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the virtual room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. We reserve the right to come back out into public session should the need arise, and that need will arise today. So for now, we will recess our regular Board of County Commissioners meeting and go into our executive session. And Welcome back to the afternoon meeting of Lane County Board of Commissioners. We are resuming our earlier afternoon meeting, and the next item on our agenda is item 14, Human Resources, a discussion on the County Administrator's 2019-2020 Annual Performance Evaluation and Rating. And with us is Alana Holmes, Chief Human Resources Officer.
Thank you, Chair Buck, Commissioners. As you just stated, we are here this afternoon coming out of executive session for the board to be able to discuss the County Administrator's 6th Annual Performance Evaluation and Performance Rating. This review period is from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Previous to today's meeting, you were provided with self-evaluation from the County Administrator, as well as executive summary of 360 feedback from a number of folks for your consideration. Just a little bit of history here. Mr. Mokrahysky first came on board with this organization in 2014, effective May 5th, 2014, and has had successive annual evaluation since that time. This past March, the board passed an order for us to go ahead and restructure our performance evaluations for employees that report to the board, and this is the first one reflective of that process. Basically, at this point, I would like to turn it over to you, Chair, so that you and others can share your comments publicly, reflecting your thoughts on his evaluation this year, and also the perspectives on where you feel his level of success is for this evaluation period. And then when you're done, at an appropriate time, I'll come back with potential options and recommendations.
Very good. Any comments by the board? We do have Commissioner Sorensen by phone, and maybe Commissioner Farr if he's still on by phone.
I'd like to be recognized when you have time to recognize me.
Very good. Go ahead, Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you. Well, this is an opportunity for the Board of Commissioners, individually or collectively, to express our evaluation of the county administrator's work. And I think it's valuable at this time to, for at least for me, to make a few comments, not so much for the benefit of the staff or Mr. Mokrahysky, but really more for the community. And that is that, in my view, Steve Mokrahysky has done an excellent job in the past year as county administrator. We're very fortunate to have him as our county administrator, and that his leadership in areas including professional development, communication, and other areas has really been extraordinary, and we're very fortunate to have him as our county administrator. Thank you.
Any other comments by commissioners? All right, I'll just, oh, okay. I saw Commissioner Bozovich and then Commissioner Bernie.
Thank you. I'll just say that Steve has completed another successful year as our county administrator. His work ethic and leadership are just above and beyond. And this COVID emergency has shown that he's built a really strong team that's flexible and focused on solutions, to the point where, you know, we made this huge change in direction of what the county's major focus was. And at the same time, we're still pushing ahead on things like some of our homeless solutions and other areas of the county. They're not being completely forgotten, but we still have managed to be a leader in controlling this pandemic in the state and have numbers far below most of the state. And that quick response and flexibility of our staff just shows the leadership he's provided and the autonomy he's given his staff to move ahead, and as he likes to talk about it, fail forward and learn from their failures. And I think that just, shows in so many ways that I just hear constantly about how Lane County understands things and really gets things done. And I hear nothing but great feedback about Steve's leadership.
Commissioner Burney.
The first time I raised my hand was I thought that perhaps Commissioner Bozovich did not want to go next. So I think that I'd just like to say to the public that this Board of Commissioners does not always agree on everything. We come from different walks of life. Everyone does their best to be of high integrity. And one thing we absolutely do coalesce around is our confidence and our partnership with our county executive. Nobody is perfect. No business is perfect. No government entity is perfect. But you have someone who strives for that, who supports people striving for that, and who has supported us as we have, from climate action to homelessness, to infrastructure, to jobs, to the health and economic crisis we are now experiencing. He has absolutely stood head and shoulders above anyone else I could imagine in this position in service to the county and in support of us. And that's what I would like to say.
A lot of commissioners have said what I would have also shared. As administrator of a medium-sized county, Nick Clackamas is probably our only real good comparable as a medium-sized county. You carry a huge amount of responsibility in the direction in which our community goes. And I am very pleased with the way in which you do that, not only where we're headed, because I believe we're going in great directions, even in the midst of a pandemic, but how you do it. You have great business sense, clearly, but you also are very compassionate towards the needs of our community and our staff. I see that reflected every week as I'm on calls with you and staff and directors, as meetings that I'm able to join as chair. And I see how you are able to explain things and have foresight into where we could go. That's opportunities. I appreciate that very much. I very much trust your judgment. And I think we are truly blessed to have you here in this position as we're going through a phenomenal time in our history. There are always places in which I'd like to see improvement in the county. I can't even imagine having 5 bosses and being able to wrangle us all in one direction. That has got to be one of the most challenging jobs out there. But you do it very well, and you listen to each and every one of us. As Commissioner Burney said, we certainly don't agree on everything, but you're still able to keep in good communication with each and every one of us, and we're all pleased to work with you. So thank you for sticking in there throughout this year, especially as challenging as it has been. And I look forward to working with you for many more years. – I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't sure if Commissioner Farr was still on the phone. He had asked for some information to be read into the record. I wasn't sure as far as protocol, if you would like me to maybe read a couple of highlights from that in his absence, as he had requested one of us to do.
Sure, feel free.
All right. So we will enter his 2 pages of comments into the record. And he reflects on the history of being the chair of the board in February 2014 when he received a call from our county administrator, formally accepting the job at Lane County. He says that he can, without reservation, state that Steve Mokrahysky stands clearly above any of the others in his incredible balance of the following competencies of a passion to serve, driven to connect, focused on solutions, people leadership, business leadership, and thought leadership. And then I'll cut to where he adds 2 significant indicators of his ability to understand and dispatch the duties of a great leader. He worked with staff and elected officials to develop and implement a strategic plan that is understood and participated in at all levels of the organization. The plan is solid in strategy and dynamic in tactics, as a plan of this sort must be. Examples abound. And then secondly, Steve has recruited, hired, and retained a world-class team of leaders who surround him in his decision-making and share his drive for excellence and results. He catches them doing things well often and is public and direct in his praise of their work. He does not take credit for the job being done, continually passes the praise to those surrounding him. Finally, and of great importance, is Steve's passionate work regarding equity and access. From his first days on the job, he has made it clear that diversity in leadership in the county is of primary importance. Once again, examples abound. Again, these are a part of Commissioner Farr's statements. All right, so then if I can move back into some of the procedural components. I wanted you all to be able to have your comments first, but I wanted to, for the public, have a little bit of context to what this process was about and how we gathered information for all of you to be informed in your comments today. So we conducted a 360 survey, which was sent out to 65 reviewers, and we had a 50% response rate. And that included community partners, peers or colleagues within Lane County, direct reports, and others. And then he was evaluated again on our core behaviors that we evaluate all employees at Lane County, which is the passion to serve, the drive to connect and focus on solutions, as well as being a leader. There are leadership competencies of people leadership, business leadership, thought leadership, and communication effectiveness. The core behavior and competency overall rating from the 360 responses was an exceeds rating of a 3.89. The competency overall ratings was also an exceeds rating at a 3.75. And so the core behaviors and competencies are worth 25% each towards the total performance rating. And then the remaining 50% of that review and the weight is with all of you in you're evaluating him as, succeeds or exceeds expectations in performance. So just to put that structure around this process. And finally, as far as options for moving forward, we provided 2 in our packet. 1, to instruct the Chief Human Resources Officer to draft a board order that documents the county administrator's performance and performance ratings based on today's discussion. Or 2, the board may ask to continue the discussion about the county administrator's performance. And Human Resources would recommend option 1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Would anybody like to present a motion on this? Mr. Bozovich.
So I would like to move that we instruct our Human Resources Officer to draft a board order that documents the county administrator's performance and performance rating based on today's discussion.
Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Bozovich, second by Commissioner Burney. Any further discussion? Right, I do not hear any. So I will go to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Farr excused. Thank you very much, Lana and Steve Mokaraski. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
We will move on to Commissioner's business, and announcements is up first. Are there any announcements from commissioners? Commissioner Burney.
I just want everyone to know that we've been experiencing some unanticipated turbulence in Springfield. And I have posted Q's and A's from the city of Springfield in terms of how they're handling the selection of an interim mayor. I don't want to announce this, Chair, if you're going to announce it. But if you don't announce what today is the 100th anniversary of, I would like to be recognized again. Thank you.
Feel free. Why don't you continue on?
I wanted to acknowledge that during this time when everyone is concerned with having their vote count and so much confusion around that, today is the 100th anniversary of women's suffrages achieving women's right to vote. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to identify that.
Absolutely.
Actually, and one other, if I may, I want to acknowledge that we have had discussions about some of our frustrations with the e-board, which I share very much. But I also wanted to acknowledge that the e-board in their first session did approve legislation which has allowed moving forward an historic timber pact between many of the timber companies and many of the environmental groups. And I've had the opportunity to speak with both groups, and they are both with good heart and good intent moving forward together on that which was initiated by them. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Well, thank you for recognizing the anniversary of women's suffrage, and some women got to vote, some women didn't. We still have issues with voting today, and the challenge is still before us to continue to ensure everybody's right to vote. I wanted to get back to everybody. I did receive the NACO, which is the National Association of Counties presidential appointment to the Transportation Steering Committee, and am chair of the Highway Safety Subcommittee. And we had our first opening meeting for the year last week, and we all got to hear everybody's priorities. For the Highway Safety Committee, for my priority for that committee for the year was stabilizing the Highway Trust Fund and helping promote the vehicle miles traveled alternative tax model that we are piloting here in Oregon, and sharing that with the rest of the counties. In addition, I have been continuing to have my weekly meetings with the governor's office, with Ms. Leah Horner. Those have been going well. Some of the issues that we brought up have been able to resolve themselves over time. So I know that they are listening and doing what they can. Last week, we also had a call with the governor. The we is the chair of each county in the state. And it looks like I just got an invite today for another one this week. So the governor is trying to touch base and is basically getting feedback from chairs about what direction the state is going. In addition to that, I've been working with our intergovernmental relationships manager, Alex Kyler, on letters and meetings with legislators to advocate for funding down to the county. And I will continue to do that to the best of our ability, and monitoring what's going on at the legislative level as best we can. Any announcements from anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to future board assignment requests. Any future assignments? I don't hear any, but I will bring up one, which kind of relates to our long day today.
Chair,
Yes?
I'll just interrupt to say that my phone was on mute when you
Oh.
asked were there any. So I would like to just be in the queue that I do have one.
Okay. I'll just finish up my thought here. I would like to propose that we consider an alternate day for our evening public comment period. Tuesdays are pretty full for us with a full day of meetings. And then we do have public comment in the evening portion of that day. I don't think it gives us as commissioners fresh face to the audience to listen to what our community needs are as best as we could be. But I would be interested in hearing feedback from the rest of the commissioners on that. With that, I'll go to Commissioner Sorensen.
Do you want to have feedback on your idea first?
Whatever you want to express, your ideas, feedback, however you want to do it.
I think it's just up to the agenda team of how to shoehorn in all the meetings. And I just would leave it as something that the agenda team should consider in terms of another day, and to try to get the current schedule met, and then if there's going to be changes, change the future schedule beyond what's already been set. So you want me to hold my comments on my item then till everybody gets around on this?
No, why don't you just continue on with your thoughts, and then we'll go to the next person.
Commissioner Burney brought up in the announcements the historic agreement between the timber industry and the environmental community, and the apparent approval of that agreement by the Oregon legislature. And at some point, I believe that I had requested a briefing on that agreement. And I would just like to, again, request that the board get a briefing from somebody or at least two groups locally who participated and approved of that agreement, so they can tell us more about the agreement and what it is and what it covers and what it doesn't cover. And I would be very interested in that, because I think it's an historic agreement, and it does affect a lot of the policies and that the county government deals with. So that's just a request. Thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Bosevich.
So relative to your proposal to change evenings on the public comment, I am just fine with leaving it on Tuesdays after the board meeting. There are other evening meetings that we juggle ourselves around. City council meetings that I like to try and get to sometimes on Monday nights, after maybe sometimes spending a full day in AOC legislative committee meetings. It's not unusual to have a day full of meetings and an evening full of meetings as a commissioner. So I don't see an issue with having it on the same day as our regular meeting. And I also am a little bit concerned that if we try and move it from the Tuesdays, that it starts getting to be Lane Act or Planning Commission or, city council meetings and other things that we'll have to start trying to balance around.
Okay, Commissioner Burney?
It's just logistics. I'm acutely aware that if I had a small child at home and I had a board meeting all day long, it would be nigh impossible for me to do an evening meeting. So I absolutely get that. I was 100% supportive of this, and then I looked at my calendar and it turns out that not every Monday evening, but Monday evenings are when another group I'm on, the Springfield Economic Development Agency, has their meetings. So it's just sort of a cluster. I almost think that I would defer to the chair. I would support whatever the chair wants. We all have busy calendars. You have a child at home.
Well, I have lots of evening meetings as well. The difference in those evening meetings, generally speaking, is we're not in a board meeting from, even agenda meeting from 8 a.m. until 5. And then also have the evening meetings. So the reason I bring that up is other evening meetings, usually the schedule is a little bit easier on alternate days. Commissioner Burney?
Am I interrupting? I'm sorry. No? Yes, I would like to make a statement about that. 8 o'clock the same day as a board meeting, agenda setting, then the whole board meeting, and then evening. I really do think that's a little much. I had no idea when I was nominated to be vice chair that that's also a part of what was entailed. So I totally get what the chair is saying, and I do agree. The problem is there's not a good time, so I don't know what to do with that.
Well, let's table the subject for now. We can think about it. It's just a suggestion. So with that, I guess we go to review of assignments.
So on Commissioner Sorensen's request, I just want to, regarding the timber agreement, that is an open assignment. So it's been referred to Alex Kyler. So that's an open assignment. I'm not clear, Chair Buck, on your request and what, because I heard you just now say, well, let's table that. Do you want to have this be an agenda team discussion to look at alternative?
I would like that very much.
Yeah, and I think that's, I kind of was hearing that we were going to do that, and then I wasn't sure what your thought on that was. So we certainly can do that. I know there are some, we're going to have to coordinate with Metro on the nights that they can, because you've got city council and all that. So some of it is just, frankly, most of it is just logistics. But I think I agree it's best for the agenda team to kind of work through the options and then consider what we can do. So that's the only one I had. Although I will say I heard Commissioner Farr this morning under remonstrance, I think it was remonstrance, raise a question about equipment in the sheriff's office that the Equity and Access, and I just did not catch if there was a further request on that. I don't know if anyone else heard, and I was checking with Diana to see. Did you flag that as an assignment?
I didn't personally flag that as assignment. I don't necessarily know enough about it. Apparently, it sounds like the Equity and Access Board asked the sheriff for a list of inventory on items, and I think what he was requesting was to not only have that list shared with us, but with other items on that list. But I think that might be easier to get clarified when Commissioner Farr is back with us next week.
Next week, yeah. I think what he was asking for, suggesting, was some additional information and more context for what that equipment is, as opposed to just a list of equipment. How is it used and those kind of things. But since he's not here, I agree with you. Maybe we can clarify that next week. So I don't,
Mr.
other than
Mokohasky?
your request for us to have the agenda team look at alternative dates for public comment, that was all I had.
Chair Buck and Mr. Mokohasky, I will pull the comment from Pat Farr and have it ready for review at our next board meeting.
Thanks.
Very good. Any emergency business?
I'm sorry, could I ask for clarification?
Yes.
Steve, when you say that that's an open assignment and Commissioner Sorensen has made that request now a couple of times, is there a time frame? There probably is, and I should just look at it, but is there an ETA for when that will occur?
I can check on it. It's, I'm just looking at what Diana sent me. A request was made to have Alex Kyler invite representatives from both the timber industry and the environmental groups who were local signatories on the recent agreement regarding the timber industry. A work session to discuss what the agreement is, what it means to our local economy, what organizations are involved in it, who is in it, who is not. So I can check with Alex on where that's at. I think the request was made sort of at the beginning of or right before COVID. And so I think it has not been on the front burner for the time being, but I can ask Alex to give us an update and I can update you next week on that.
We're also having a review of assignment in general, tentatively on our September 1st meeting. It was on a previous meeting that we had, but it got bumped because we were running out of time. So we'll be able to go through each one of those at that meeting, I believe. So no emergency business. Any other business for the day? All right, I don't hear any. So we will go to recess until 5:30 this evening. Thank you, everybody.